Thanks for staying with us. President Emmerson Mnangagwa has proclaimed the election date for Zimbabwe national elections. The elections will be held on the 23rd of August. It is now a race against time for voters to check their details on the voters' roll, with only 2 days left before the process ends. For more on this, let's speak now to SABC News International Editor, Sophie Mokoena, who joins us in studio now. Sophie, finally the date is out. Yesterday, there was a story saying we're still waiting to see what's happening. Are they ready though?
Well, when you look at the Electoral Commission, they are likely going to say they are ready. When you look at government, they are going to say the same because they are the governing party. But when you look at what oppositions have been raising since we knew that there's going to be national elections in Zimbabwe, there are issues that needs to be ironed out. You speak about the voters' roll. They've been calling on the Electoral Commission to make the voters' roll available so that people can look at ensuring that their details are well captured. And now the date has been proclaimed, and therefore only a few days left for that process to end. And therefore it is indeed a race against time, but also leveling of playing field, particularly on issues related to media. You know that the state broadcaster in Zimbabwe hardly covers the opposition parties, and therefore these are some of the issues, but also the proposed changes to the constitution that would have seen some changes to the Electoral Act. If you don't level the playing field, it becomes a problem.
At the same time, you think about Zimbabwe, when you take a step back in history, we've seen controversy around the elections. We've also seen, of course, even ahead of this election, concerns about, some violence ahead of the polls. Let's talk about what the opposition is saying about this.
Well, opposition have been complaining that the activities of political parties are not happening as freely as they should. You see sporadic disruptions of meetings and campaigning, and of course government will deny that the law enforcement agencies are involved, and also the governing party would deny the fact that they are involved. But there has been sporadic and also pockets of disruptions in relation to when parties are campaigning, and therefore you know that even during the by-elections that were held, there were similar issues, and you cannot win elections unless there was a process. It doesn't start on voting day. It starts with build up a year before. Look at South Africa. Already you can see parties are campaigning, and no one is being stopped from having meetings or saying whatever they want to say. I was watching today, the president is in parliament answering questions, presenting his budget for the office, but you can hear political parties are presenting political statements thinking about elections. You have some leaders who are out there with gatherings. I mean, the AFF leader in the Free State. So you can see that there's already electioneering, and no one is complaining. They are all over the media, and therefore you need that kind of an environment to prevail ahead of elections. But it's not so easy in that country. Already people on social media are crying foul to say the election date coincides with the BRICS summit in South Africa, and therefore they are concerned that media houses in South Africa will prioritize the coverage of BRICS, and we are going to ignore the elections in Zimbabwe, and also all eyes around the world will be on the BRICS summit with all the challenges around the summit. And therefore you can see that now even as media, we are under pressure to decide how you deploy and what you prioritize, and therefore it becomes a very difficult exercise, and also it is a very, very expensive exercise for media.
And you can only imagine, what that is going to look like, especially when it comes to prioritizing. But there's another big issue, and that's the international community that is watching this particular development and the possibility of further sanctions. You cannot even rule that out. Do you get a sense that the government will be watching this and the security cluster making sure that all things are done according to the book?
When you look at President Mnangagwa's posture, I mean, he was in the United Kingdom recently during the coronation of the king. He is trying to put a brave face and portraying that image that Zimbabwe is open for business, but also they are doing things differently. But when you speak to opposition parties and ordinary people on the ground, you get a different story. And therefore, you are correct. The international community will be watching, and perhaps that they can be able to take a decision. You know, they want to be admitted back to the Commonwealth, and I think the Commonwealth will be watching. And also, you'll be having international observers. Much as you'll be having this big BRICS summit in South Africa, there is just no way the international community will not be watching the elections, and the international media will be there.
I don't envy you when it comes to prioritizing. What do you do on that day? Because
I'm in trouble.
It all rests on you. Thank you so much for your time. That was SABC News International Editor, also Sophie Mokoena. Of course, a very difficult task lies ahead for her.